It's the post oak that cats
Mm-hmm.
designated as a notable tree this past year.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to get another picture of it in leaf.
Yes. Yes.
But in the meantime, I look like Medusa.
Yes, too. Hi, Peggy.
Early birds.
Yep.
Or at least not late.
There you go. Is that the tree at the cemetery?
Yeah.
That's so wonderful.
It is.
As Roxanne pointed out, I need to update it and get leaves on it.
Oh, there you go. So we won't think it's dead, huh? Hi, Anson.
Hey,
Hi, Anson.
hey, how's it going?
How are you doing?
Doing great.
Good.
Not here for long, but I've got good news. We got a professor over at the A school is we got a grant. We're getting some drones. We're getting a 3D scanning drone and some other gear, but we will probably, I guess, in the next month and a half, we got another grant over at the Center for Civic Innovation. We actually got a couple, but we got one specifically related to 3D scanning parts of Charlottesville, and I think we could very easily tie the drone run over 10th and Page and get that done before the winter. I saw your timeline, Peggy, and I thought I know initially I thought it was going to have to be in the spring. I've actually got to run pretty soon, but I wanted to just drop a note in that we should be able to get that done, I think in September, maybe October. We want to do it before the leaves fall down so that we can actually, the problem with most of the canopy and the satellite photography that we've got in the area is that it's done in March when all the tree leaves are down, which is super convenient because you can see more. But since we actually want to see the canopy, it would be super convenient to have a more recent and canopy study done with the leaves on. So
is that the kind of thing, Anson, that we could, as we find out where we can plant trees, we can, keep a database in that?
Yeah, no, I'll be taking care of that. I'm working with Code for Seville on that, so that's not something we'll have to work. Like you guys can, I'll present that data. I'll send links and make that available, but it's not something the Tree Commission will have to worry about or the city.
Great.
Yep.
Can keep, it'd be nice to, as we go when we start in the spring, knocking on doors, you can keep a database. Well, this person said yes, this person said no, all that sort of.
I mean, I think we will have Code for Seville is going to be doing tech support for this with Center for Civic Innovation. And so, if we need to have online surveys or things like that, we can do that with Code for Seville. It'll save us time. We don't have to wait for the city to come up with, it's a lot of work for them and they don't have the bandwidth. So this way we don't have to, rely on their services.
That's great.
Yeah.
Nice, Peggy, that you can delegate all this stuff to Anson.
There you go.
Some of it, a fair bit of it. Code for Seville, we're trying to get a couple of master's students to do their Keystone projects related to public health and canopy. We are trying to get a little bit of that in. We'll see where it lands. The School of Data Science has promised me one, but maybe two students. So we'll see what that means. They won't be undergrads though, so it's not going to be full on amateur hour.
And so what else are they mapping? What else will be mapped? I mean, are you really?
Oh, I'm working on, well, we got a grant through the library, through the National Library group. So we're doing all the local libraries, and then any public space, we're working with the LiDAR that's on the iOS devices. So it's kind of neat. It's I don't want to say it's pedestrian, but but it kind of is. I mean, that's the neat thing about a consumer grade LiDAR is that we're going to be scanning local areas, but it's also kind of about educating the public about how these tools work now. We're working with PVCC, trying to get some educational outputs out of it.
So you can collect almost any kind of data you want.
Yeah, I mean, really the focus is accessibility, right? I mean, we're looking at wheelchair, low vision, blind accessibility. That's the target market. But
And health data?
the health data is kind of additional. That's where Michael Lugering is a new professor over in the architecture school who is interested in that space, and he's doing a fellowship project with the Center for Civic Innovation. So we're coordinating over there.
Good.
Yeah.
Fun stuff.
Yeah, that's great, Anthony. And you're gonna have to
Yeah.
leave soon?
I do. I gotta head out. But I just wanted to drop in and coordinate, let you know that we were working, and that whatever you guys, when you decide to have a survey, whatever you want to take door to door, we would love to duplicate that online,
Okay.
something like that. And I will try to get a page up in the next. Send me what you'd like when you'd like it up. We can really start. Code for Cville's given us plenty of space and mapping resources and all that good stuff. So we can host over there and move things along in a timely manner if we need to.
That's terrific.
Well, have a great day and good to see you guys. Rock on. Yep.
I don't know where the rest of our attendees are. Let's see. We're still waiting. We have a number of people. They're not here yet. We got Mark Rylander, Jean.
He's on.
Mark is on. He was someplace. There's Mark. Mark's on.
No, well, that's Mark.
Oh.
Oh, there's Jeff. Is there anybody? Maybe I can't see everybody. Oh, let me get the gallery. Oh, I'm sorry. I only saw a few people. I hadn't done gallery. I was getting ready to just talk about how awful you were for not being here. I think just about everybody's here. Mike's here too. Brian will probably join by phone. He's on the road going to see his parents. So thank you for coming. Let me introduce some of you to a few people. There's Roxanne White up in the corner there. Roxanne was on the tree commission for a long time, and she loves us so much.
Couldn't leave.
That she's continuing to volunteer on the Educate and Advocate committee. And so she's been great in helping us develop Cville Relief, and she's going to talk about some of the data that we collect every year too later. The other person you might not know is Lucy Hartley. She's from the Parks and Rec. She's a programmer, and she particularly likes nature. She's got a lot of bird pictures hanging around her office. And so she's been trained as a naturalist. So she's going to help us with Cville Relief. And we're going to do that first because we'll let Lucy go. Thank you to, I'm not sure who's here from the city, but to Lucy, Mike, and Brian for extending their day to be with us today. So I don't know if that's Brian Wheeler hiding behind those Charlottesville symbols or not, or Joe. There it is. Thank you, Brian.
I had to be here for council anyway.
Oh, there you go. So today the purpose is to review some of our projects that we need to get start on or get done by the next mid-September. We won't be meeting again until the second Tuesday in September because of a holiday on the first Tuesday. So we have about a month and a half to get some things done. So the purpose is to go over some of these things and see how you all want to help us on these various projects. The first one we'll look at is, let's see, can I share my space? I can share my screen. Brian, can you let me share?
Yep, I just turned it on.
Okay. All right. Now I got to find out. Let me open up something. Let's see. So can you see that? Wait a minute. Now you
There
can,
you go.
there you go. Whoop. If I can be, anyway, the first thing we want to review is the Seaville Relief Project, and let me just bring you up to speed. We've got our fund set up at CACF. I think most of you know Charlottesville Area Community Foundation. And we've gotten some of our funds in there. We have $7,500 so far. We're waiting for the Nature Conservancy to give us the 20,000. But anyway, we're up and running. We have our application signed. So now we're just beginning to work on what we're going to do this fall. And so that's at the top of your screen there. And let's see if I can make it a little smaller. I don't know if you can see everything. There you can. So Lucy and I have been beginning to contact some people. Lucy has talked to the City of Promise and has got to contact a woman named Sarah, who is works with some of the younger kids there. And I have made contact with the Venable principal, who is on vacation. And of course, as soon as she comes back, she's going to be really busy getting ready for school, but said she'd talk to us in September. So, and we're also reaching out to Wild Rock. I don't know if many of you know that organization. It's in Albemarle. It's actually a physical space, a beautiful farm. And they work with children to get them to appreciate nature and improve health outcomes. So they're working with the schools and with the City of Promise. They're actually going to be working with the City of Promise this fall, doing nature activities. So we're going to work with them, because this basically, the Seaville Relief is a fund. It's not an organization. We want to coordinate with other organizations and actually fund their activities. So as I said, so we're just getting started on that. Roxanne has done a nice job of doing this little, you'll have to bear with me again. Now I got to find where I was, of doing this graphic for us. And she has also developed, and now I had everything open so I could do it really quickly. So excuse my, let's see. Okay. So Roxanne has been very kind also. Roxanne has worked with the county for many years with the county manager. And so she knows how to do action plans and get them done. She also knows how to do budgets. So we're lucky to have that she's continued to help us. And I won't go through this whole thing, so you have it with you. But it's starting to lay out what needs to be done and when, and what our success measures are. And as you can see, we're just, again, beginning. Mostly we will start really ramping up in September. So many of us are gone in August. Teachers are gone, principals are gone, that it's a little hard to get things done in August. But this shows sort of who's going to take the lead, and it's mainly between Roxanne and I. That doesn't mean we're going to do all the work. Certainly like some help. And so as we go along, please let us know what you'd be interested in helping us with. And certainly as we get more details and let you know what we're going to do, probably make it easier for you to say, yes, I'd like to help or whatnot. But are there any questions about this project? Oh, there's Mark. I don't seem to be able to see everybody. So Mark.
Peggy, I was having trouble seeing the timeline, and I didn't know if it was me or if it zoomed into the upper right corner.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's see.
You had it smaller before, Peggy, and you could see it better.
Yeah. Okay.
That's better.
That's better.
I just wanted to see the task. I think, did you send this out also? I think it maybe was in the.
It was in the description. Yeah,
Okay.
It's the last page of the description that I sent out.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yeah. So what we want to do is do some nature activities. You know, our primary goal is to plant trees and to increase the canopy, particularly in low canopy neighborhoods. But we also realize we just don't want to come in and tell everybody what to do. And so our idea was if we could get kids excited about trees and nature, then that's going to bubble up to the older generation and to their families. And also because it's really late to plant a lot of trees right now. We've just got funding and we haven't really got it started. That we really will do the most planting, at least on private property, next fall. That'll give us time to, as I said, get kids excited, to be able to approach neighbors, and we'll have the funds to do it. This fall, the tree stewards, who started much earlier, they have a small fund of about $2,000, and they're going to, and we certainly can help as much as possible, do a small number of trees, approximately 10 to 15, and it'll be a good sort of model project, and the neighbors can see sort of what's going on. But our larger planting, at least on private property, needs to happen in the fall. We all think it's better to plant trees in the fall. They have a better chance of survival. But we do want to do some of our city planting, and we'll talk about that next when we talk about the city planting. So does that give you a little more information or answer any questions? And I don't want to, Lucy, I don't want to neglect you. I don't know if you want to chime in with any thoughts.
No, I think we have some good initial contacts that both Wild Rock and City Schoolyard Garden are working with the City of Promise kids. So I think there's good connection with the younger kids. I think the teenagers will have to think about how to approach that. But yeah, I think that's a good start, finding good partners who are there right now.
Yeah, we do want to get, one of our ideas is to get teenagers interested, is to introduce them to green industry. The project that was done with the Chesapeake Bay in Richmond, that's one thing they did, is not only to introduce the teenagers to the green industry, but get them involved too within the planting. And we also want to train in the spring, train some of the teenagers from the City of Promise to actually walk with us or members of CATS to knock on doors and to be ambassadors. We'll train them about the value of trees and how to approach people and asking. We think it'll be a good thing for them. And I think it will help us be able to approach the neighbors. So those are two ideas about the teenagers. And we may be able to do this fall. I know my son, Jake, who's part owner of the tree company, he's a big athlete, and he wants to do some things with some of the teenagers perhaps this fall. And Lucy, we haven't talked about this in detail, but to introduce the teenagers to tree care, ropes, tree climbing, I think that would be fun activities. And
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Our insurance to do. We can take them up in bucket trucks, or how high can we get these kids in the trees? He does this with my grandchildren all the time. It teaches them how to climb ropes. So I think that'll be fun. That's some of our ideas about the teenagers.
Peggy, I was just going to say, one of the things that you said, it takes some time, not only to get everything ready to plant the trees, but I think we've learned from experience that it takes a while to build up trust in the community. And partly what we want to do is not just come in and plant trees, but get the community excited about trees and excited about why this is happening and how it impacts them, how it impacts people personally in their own neighborhoods. So, and that's sometimes a slow process. So
yeah,
I think I'm glad we've got a kind of a year to do this.
Yeah, and we have on our advisory committee is James Bryant, who's on the school board. He's the vice chair. He lives in 10th and Page. He grew up in 10th and Page. He's a very gregarious man. I don't know if you know him, but and he wants to help us do outreach, and he knows the neighbors. So we will certainly take advantage of that. He's also giving us some people in the neighborhood that will want to approach this fall and just who are lived in the neighborhood for a long time, let them know about the project, get some feedback with them. So that's on our list to do too.
Peggy, is there money available for maintenance or replacement? Like what does that look like over time? Like say a year from now, one of these trees were to die, does it get replaced? Who's watering?
Well, the tree stewards have a really good process about how they do this. And they actually, and it was developed with us, with the tree commission. They get the homeowner to sign a waiver. And well, first of all, that you can go on their property, but also there's sort of an agreement. Mark Zollenhofer might be able to explain it better, or Roxanne. But we asked them to water the trees for a year. And then I think the maintenance idea is a great one. I think we need to continue to explore it. I think the tree stewards or Van Yerry's Tree Company would volunteer to come in and do some foraging pruning on these trees, maybe after a year or two, to get them off to a good start. But I think Arlington County, and it's something we should look into, actually has a fund where they will pay for homeowners to particularly have older trees that need to be maintained, pay for a certified arborist to come in and, maintain the trees. And I think down the line, that's something that we should look for, because that's always, people are concerned about having to maintain the trees,
Right.
particularly as they get older. I mean, particularly, obviously, young trees don't need as much, but we'd like to preserve, we want to preserve old trees too. So I think it's something that we should, keep our, if we can raise more money, and I think we have some possibilities, we could start something like that too.
Peggy?
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the concerns that I think we ought to pay attention to was when the CATS group walked through the neighborhood with Jeremy Kaplan, who apparently is very much like James Bryant, very knowledgeable of the neighborhood, lots of contacts, and very supportive of these initiatives that we're beginning. He commented that a number of people, especially in the older generation, like myself, want to get rid of trees because they're afraid of the economic liability. And of course, we don't want to encourage people to cut down trees just because they're worried about a limb falling or something. So I think it would be valuable in the fall if we can get these high school students to do a survey where we could ask questions about, if they didn't want a tree, why not? So that we can find out what some of their fears are, similar to the problem we're having with COVID vaccinations. A lot of people have hesitance about that. And if we can find out from these teenagers, hopefully having some empathy with their community members, and they ask those people, well, why don't you want a tree? And we can get some of those answers, then we could develop some strategies for addressing those as we go around knocking and asking people, would they like a tree? It would be good to have those answers in hand.
That's a good idea, Mark. So we'll be able to answer their objections.
Right.
That's a good idea. So let's see. Are any other thoughts? I want to end this. I don't know if Joe Rice has given us 2 hours, but we're certainly not going to keep the city that long. I want to just take an hour of city's time. So I want to move on unless there are other questions here. Oh, okay. Let's see. Mark, you got another question? Then I'll go to.
I just wondered if you could just sort of, I was looking at the timelines and the materials and wondering about the funding or anticipated funding, sort of how big is the tree planting proposed once we're planting next year? I don't really have a good sense of like how many trees we're hoping to plant. And, I'm also interested in the location strategy document you sent out, but that's from the other subcommittee I'm on.
Well, I think anywhere between 20 and 50 trees would be a wonderful thing. And I know the tree stewards like to plant about 20 or 25 at a time. Is that right, Mark?
This project, I think it's going to be 10 to 15 this fall.
Yeah.
So it for a larger group, it just depends on how many volunteers we get and how much money we have.
Right. Right. So yeah, that often.
On how many people want trees?
Yeah, I mean, we'll have more money. You know, we have the money to plant more than 10 or 15, that's for sure. But it'll come down to, how many people are willing to do it.
So the goal is 20 to 50 per year as an ongoing thing, and then getting additional funding as we go. Is that?
Roxanne and I did it. We had in there a goal was to plant one tree for every kid in the neighborhood.
Right.
And I looked at the census, and we came down to about 130 or 150 school-age kids. I'm not exactly sure that's right. There'll be the new census coming out. I think actually comes out in August. Anyway, so, if we could plant 50 trees over the next 3 years, wouldn't that be great? Now, remember, we can plant some city trees too. And we'll talk about that next.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And it's also the plan to move on to different neighborhoods.
Yeah, right. This is our first neighborhood. And I hope sometime too, we can, we have this sort of gross overall look at the city, and we see, certain neighborhoods have low canopy, but in Belmont, for instance, or Willow Mills in my neighborhood, there are lots of streets that hardly have any trees. And I want to ask Anson at some time, we can do a more fine look, because there's certainly parts of all these neighborhoods that have hardly any trees. But anyway, Jacqueline, can we move on to you? Because we got two more things.
Thanks, Peggy. I just wanted to chime in about the I guess the woodering and replacement efforts, and just two little points from when we did a small tree planting here in Martha Jeff. We every tree that we planted had a bag. We asked the garden group that planted it, the tree company that planted it, to provide that, and they were sort of minimal cost. So we had a lot of luck with our trees just automatically in the ground with the tree bag. And asked obviously the property owners to fill them with water, and they seemed to find. The other thing is we did get a 3-year guarantee. I don't know if if Mark, if that's your experience with the tree stewards, but we did we were able to eke out a replacement tree in the one instance that we had one parish. So just food for thought in terms of how we approach the planting right off the bat. And these were decent size shade trees, probably 10 feet tall, that we purchased.
Mm-hmm. Did your neighborhood plant them?
With this was a neighborhood association effort. We got a little city money. We put in 10 trees. So yeah, 9 out of 10 lived, and I still drives me crazy when I see the one spot that we had to, that the tree didn't make it, but it seemed neighbors were fine filling up the bags with the water. And we just two little ideas. The other thing I just wanted to mention, just food, I don't want to belabor it, but I'd be happy to link up any of the relief efforts with, I'm just thinking of 3 entry points at CHS, who might be able to support, would maybe appreciate knowing about it and seeing if there's a way they could join in on the effort.
The students at CHS?
Yeah, I'm thinking the environmental policy, environmental studies. I'm thinking about the gardening staff person. And I love the idea of teens going around the neighborhood. And there is a rock star public speaking teacher there who would love, I bet, to charge some of her students with, you're gonna have to put together a little 3-minute pitch. So I think there might be some really fun ways to, I'm just thinking about the teens.
Yeah,
I love that idea. So just count me in if we get to that point on the plan.
great. I've got your name down. And Jean, and then we're going to move on because
Yeah, I wasn't sure, the $30,000 you mentioned in this document for this meeting, is that meant just to cover this one neighborhood?
no, not necessarily. You know, that's our initial, you know, the most expensive thing are going to be the trees, obviously. So we'll see how many we can plant. But it's the initial, it won't, we hope it'll spread a little bit more than that. Quickly on the just one thing, and then we're going to move on. I don't know if Mike has heard. Have you heard about tree diapers? It's a terrible name, but it's a great product. It's replacing often the gator bags that for watering, and they're made up of actually diaper material, and it's actually developed by a company in Richmond, and it cuts down on watering tremendously. Now they're a little more expensive than the gator bags, but they absorb the water they absorb the rain too, see? So of course it doesn't help too much this summer, but since we haven't had much rain, but they absorb the rain and then let that out slowly. And University of Richmond, lots of places in Richmond, Hollywood Cemetery are using them. But anyway, that's something we could look at too, to make it easier for people. And also for the city might want to look at it, to cuts down on their watering. So let's go on to the next item, and let's talk about the trees, the city. And Lucy, if you want to go, we'll get back together. Thank you for coming. Okay. Oh, Lucy, you know, actually, when you talk to Sarah at the City of Promise, you might ask her about who works with the teenagers.
Okay, yeah, I'll see what kinds of programs they have for the teens.
Okay, great. Thank
Great,
you.
thank you.
Thank you. I guess it was a year or two ago that Mike did a great thing. He developed guidelines, help us decide where to plant. And let me see if I can get you on here again. Share screen. Okay. So Mike developed these location guidelines to help us decide where to plant. And we used it, I think, just the first time last year. And I'm afraid we didn't have much money last year. City Council and FY, I get mixed up in the FY, whatever. But anyway, last fall, we only had about $7,000, I think. Is that right, Mike?
That's correct.
Yeah, to plant. We had asked for 75,000 with City Council on the CIP. And because of COVID and all the other priorities they had, they basically gave us nothing. So, but the good news is this year we do have the 75,000. Isn't that right, Mike?
Yeah, I believe that's correct.
Yeah. So, Jacqueline, did you have a question, or is your hand just still up from last time? Oh. Okay. So anyway, we have $75,000 to plant trees this fall. Now that equals approximately, if I'm just figuring $450 a tree, I know they're going up, Mike, and they're probably going up even more. So just taking that on an average, these are larger trees, of course. These are 2 to 2.5 inch approximately. And so that equals about 166 trees. If you look to the data, our goal is to plant 200 trees a year. So we're still not even getting this extra money. We're still not there yet. We had been getting about $50,000 a year until really this year. That was our average beforehand. So anyway, so Mike will be deciding, suggesting to us where to plant trees. But I thought that this year we might also, I think it's a good idea to involve the tree commission a little more, particularly the Arbor Committee. And so Jeff Layton Otten. I'm sorry, Jeff. I think I mispronounce your last name all the time. Is it
But
Otten?
you had it right the first time. Aten would be if I was Egyptian, I think.
Oh, well, I swear, Brian,
Aten.
Brian Maynard keeps correcting me. Now I can correct him.
Yes, you can. It's Aten. Yep.
Since I've been practicing, I probably say it the wrong way. Anyway, Jeff has agreed to coordinate on this project. He's agreed to coordinate for the Arbor Committee. And so this is a project that we need to get ready for our September meeting. And so just to go through a little bit, Jeff, you probably hadn't seen this either, but these are, you can see we're going to weight highly low canopy neighborhoods. We also rate highly large shade trees because that's what we want to plant mainly if we can. And right-of-ways along trails or sidewalks. So neighborhoods under 20%, which are Star Hill and 10th and Page, get a rating of 3. Large shade trees and right-of-ways along trails or sidewalks get 3. So, and then Mike gave some examples down there how it works. But I'm hoping we can give some suggestions to Mike. I don't know if Mike, have you started compiling your list already?
Yes, I have.
Okay. And I think we want to look particularly close in 10th and Page, see if there are places we can plant. I know they're not going to be a lot, but even though Venable is not actually in the 10th and Page neighborhood, it is the school for the 10th and Page kids. So I'm hoping we can plant some there, particularly as I think I've told you before, there's the upper school, the upper kids playground is hot. It's right next to the parking lot and it really has very little trees, particularly compared to the younger kids on the other side of the building, which is just completely shaded by huge trees. So I think that's somewhere we could look. We also, a couple of us sort of walked to Venable, and actually along the walk, we found some, I don't know if Mark was maybe Mark was not with us. We found some of the routes to school that kids would walk. There are tree lawns and some of the trees have died there. So I think that's another place. Even though it's not in the 10th and Page, it certainly benefits the kids going to the school. So I think we want to look closely at 10th and Page since we were zeroing in on that neighborhood. But Mark, do you have a question?
Unmuted here. I was just wondering, under other criteria, when it says large shade tree, is that how the power line issue is kind of brought into this? Like, if you had at the code subcommittee, we started talking about the right of way and street trees related to zoning, and I was just curious about sort of what the criteria are relative to power lines. Very early in my tenure, like 3 years ago, we were sort of evaluating all the potential locations and somehow kind of narrowing down the ones that were free and clear of any overhead obstructions. And those were sort of high priorities. And I'm curious about how the power lines play into this.
Mike, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, sure. So we won't be planting large shade trees directly under power lines. Sometimes if we can offset them, so we can accommodate both, we'll do that. But otherwise, we'll be planting a medium or a small tree, depending on the situation of the power lines or the overhead utilities. So yes, that does address the overhead utility using a large shade tree.
Right.
Roxanne,
Right, so,
I'm sorry, Mark, you want to continue?
Well, just as an example then, just to test this, we're looking at 10th and Page, we're evaluating sort of where are the ones we want to plant for sure. We have criteria for a large shade tree, and I'm not entirely clear. You probably just described what right of way with trail or sidewalk means, but that you would look at all the locations that fit those top 3-point criteria within the neighborhood once you're within a neighborhood. Is that how this works?
How this work, how I use this is I have planting locations. That's kind of how I put them together now. At this point, I have a bunch of planting locations, then I can look at them and stratify them further and say, I have a planting location. Can it fit a large shade tree? Does it have everything it needs for that? And then I go from there, look at, the neighborhood, et cetera. So that's how I apply this. I have the locations, they have their limitations, and then I just apply them there, and then I can rank the planting locations that way.
Okay, that's helpful. I think it's ringing a bell now. It just was not that clear to me initially. Thanks. I get it now, I think.
Roxanne, did you have a question?
Yeah, my question, I guess maybe it's to Mark. I remember also that one of the things that Paul was always asking about, and I don't know whether your group is looking at that, but that was the difference between looking at actual power lines and then cable lines, and the differentiating between those two, because there's a lot of cable lines that are not power lines and possibly not dangerous to plant a tree underneath. So I don't know whether you're looking at that or not, but I thought that was always an issue.
Yeah, I'm not looking at it, but it's a great point. In some ways, it's kind of like if it's not going to mean that they will be compromised in the future by whoever comes along on behalf of Dominion, that would be great.
Yeah, just to be something to look at.
Yeah.
So, okay. Jeff, I don't know if you probably hadn't had much time to think about this, but obviously you can work closely with Mike. But I would think, Roxanne was telling me about in Fredericksburg, they're equivalent to us, the Tree Commission. They take a little bit longer. They start earlier, getting suggestions from the members, encourage them to go out and sort of look and give suggestions to the arborists where they might want to see trees too. So I would like to encourage, perhaps you could reach out. Mike's got his list, but I think there are other people that might have some thoughts and could pass them on to Mike. And obviously Mike can say whether it's a good idea or not, or whether there's any place for them. But I'm thinking that it would be nice to kind of reach out to the Tree Commission a little bit more. Do you have any thoughts on that, Jeff? No,
I'm muted. Yeah, I think that's great. I was wondering, maybe it sounds like Mike and I should just get together, because it sounds like you already use like GIS or something to place trees, suggested trees, and then you have some way of marking the criteria, Mike, to say whether it, how it gets ranked, and then you can produce a spreadsheet basically of all those trees and how they rank. So it might be useful for us to have a way of reviewing that map, and I could work with Mike on making that and then highlighting particular trees or highlighting particular locations that we might want to then make suggestions for additional trees to be planted if they're not already covered by Mike. There's some interesting GIS, like sort of sharing maps, and we haven't used these on projects, but I don't know if the city has. And maybe Mark Rylander, you know of this use in sort of engaging public, is that you can have you can produce a GIS map and then people can go in and comment on it. So it could be a way for us to have like something that's a little bit more interactive, where it's not just one off and one and done, kind of like it's actually could live somewhere and there's a link and people could get in there when they were available, when they had walked the neighborhood or after they had done some investigation of their own, and say, hey, I think a tree right here could be really good, and you could place it and then make a comment, and then we could review that either as the smaller arbor committee, or Mike and I could look at it together, or it could just go to Mike. So there might be a way to make this a little bit more interactive.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. And I know we don't have a lot of time. We're a little bit behind the 8 ball on that. normally Mike would have submitted his preliminary recommendations in August. And as I remember, I think that's right, Mike, and you'd be getting ready to do an RFP in September, right? So we're a little bit behind.
So this might be more aspirational for next year, but I mean, maybe this year it's more just a couple suggestions.
Yeah, I think I mean, I'm not suggesting that we couldn't. I think it's a great idea, Jeff, and I'm not suggesting we couldn't use it. I just wanted you to know the time frame. We're a little tight this year, and I think it's something, you know. I think we can do. I still think we can reach out to people on the tree commission and ask them, you know, for any suggestions, because most of us are looking at trees as we ride around the ride around the city and thinking about trees.
Right.
We might just, you know, have thought about it. So I don't know if there's time to develop what you're talking about, but I think it's a great idea. But I just wanted to make aware of the time frame. Jacqueline, did you have a question?
Sure, yes. Mike, did I miss it? Are you going to share the proposed list of sites with the tree commission, or is that something you typically send out?
Yes, I'll share it at the next meeting. I'll have a list, and I'm going to use this criteria to rank them.
That's what Jacqueline, that's what he does. He would come with a preliminary list in August.
Okay.
But I think we should, but I'm saying, I think, you know, sometimes I think we just get the list and it's hard to make suggestions because you haven't thought about it too much.
Well, I think sort of what we've done in the past, less formal, but I would get people, tree commission members would email me and say, have you looked at this location? And that's always helpful. Then I can roll it out and say, yes, I have, or no, that's great, let's look at it. So I always appreciate those suggestions too.
Yeah, so that's what I'm thinking now. And, you know, I think any of us on these two committees or anybody on the tree commission could send Mike some suggestions to Mike and Jeff. And Jeff, I don't know if maybe you want to send a email to everybody on the tree commission and ask them to send suggestions, you know, whether you can make it interactive or not, I don't know, because the time is short. But you know, Mike does appreciate it, just so we can have some suggestions before you two will be presenting in September.
Okay, great. I'm pretty terrible at getting emails and answering them and then collating them. So I would love to just set up like a Google Drive document, like it could be a spreadsheet, and direct people to that to fill it in as needed. Is that a way of doing things that works okay?
Yeah, you and Mike talk about that, and that's fine. Yeah. I think whatever makes it more efficient. And you don't have to answer emails.
Right. That's what I try to avoid.
Yeah. And it's a way to start accumulating all the suggestions.
Yeah.
Okay, Mark?
You're muted, Mark.
You can't hear you, Mark.
There you go. The biggest question I think I would have with this is not knowing where the public land is or the right of way is. I might volunteer somebody's yard, you know, and that's not helpful to what Mike needs to do. So is there a way for us to, you know, some guidance about where the city can actually plant?
Yeah, sure, Mark. On the city's GIS viewer, it's not perfect, but it can show you where there is right of way that can accommodate a tree usually, and it's a good first over if we're going to be looking at a lot of tree locations. If that helps.
Okay, yeah, I'll send you an email asking for that information.
Okay,
Mike, I'll send you an email, see if you will send out that information. And
okay.
if there are any public facilities like schools or parks or, you know, Mark, anything like that too. Jacqueline, we're gonna move on to our last subject in a minute here. But Jacqueline, did you have a
I
question?
think you guys just answered my question. Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, yeah, I just wanted to chime in. So I was just looking at the city's green map, which is interesting. It's not exactly the same thing as it's not the same thing that all of our city trees are on, but it would be nice to know sort of how that was created or who at the city put that together, because that could be the tool that Jeff was talking about in some way. If we had access to, say, a version of that, we could add layers to it that only we could see, for example. You know what I'm talking about? There are all sort of bioretention projects. They're little pins in the map for all the green projects going on in the city. And it might be a way that we might be able to use it as a tool, is all I'm saying. But it might be in Crystal's camp.
Yeah, that's correct. That was a project done, I think, with the contractor through the environmental department. So that would be an environmental department question and IT question.
That's Department of Sustainability under Public Works, Jeff. It's Crystal.
Ritterville.
Yeah, and yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like it was an outside contractor though, so that's less promising maybe.
Well, Mike, when we got that presentation about green print from sustainability, she talked about having maps showing where trees could be planted. Is that right? Do you remember?
Years ago when they did the possible planting area study, we have like map books. So we've had that, but I've used it for a number of years.
Is it out of date or is it still in?
Yes, yes, it's out of date. So,
okay.
But I mean, I'm going to look at it again when I put together this list, make sure we've exhausted.
Okay. Could you share that with Jeff too?
The possible planting area map?
Yeah.
Looks, yeah, I can do that.
All right. Okay, I'm going to move on. We have 10 minutes. We can take, I think, a little longer than that if you all have time, but we'll try to wrap up. Let's see, Roxanne, maybe you want to share your, do you have the data?
Yeah, but it'd be easier maybe if you share could you put it on your screen?
Yeah, okay. Just an introduction. A number of years ago, this is an initiative that Roxanne did. So we can measure what we do. Over a number of years, Roxanne and a committee and lots of people, Mark, Mike, Brian, myself, and Paul developed these charts. And we use them, as I said, to measure what we do. We also use them mainly when we give our presentation to City Council. So I'm going to let Roxanne talk about them, and let me get them up. All right, let me go back.
Well, while you're doing that, Peggy, I'll just start and say that we started this project in 2015, and basically felt it was something that was really important that the Tree Commission needed to do. We looked at the city's goals, we looked at their comprehensive plan, we looked at the strategic plans to see what did the city really want to do about trees. And, you know, the Tree Commission's responsibility to enhance and improve the tree canopy. And so we really sat down and said, what do we need to measure to make sure that that's what we're doing, is improving and enhancing and growing actually the tree canopy. So that's what we started to do. And we came together, we developed 6 different, oh no, it was 12. We came up with 12 different sort of performance measures of how we would measure how we were doing, or how the city was doing with their tree goals. And they've been adapted and revised, and I think we've dropped a couple of them. But part of it was that we don't want to go to City Council and, you know, be asked the questions, well, why do you need additional money? Because what are you doing now, and what do you want to do? And if we don't know the answers, we don't get very far if we don't know kind of what we're doing and actually what our targets are and why we need that money to reach those targets. So the first one is basically the total tree canopy, which gets measured every 5 years. We're a little late this year. It's going to be measured, I think, this year, which would be 2021. But you can see it's an important chart that we always start with, because you can see that the tree canopy's gone down 5%, you know, over that 10-year period from 2004 to 2014. So this is an important one. And last year, I think it was last year, the Tree Commission approved the goal of trying to get back up to a 50% target. And so that would be an increased tree planting program in order to get back up to 50%. So Peggy, you can go to the next one.
Okay, let's see if I can do this. Whoops.
Well, there you go.
Well, got two of them.
Got two of them. So the next one really was in maintaining the tree canopy. We didn't really know for a long time exactly how many trees were actually being planted. And then you see in the second one, how many trees were being removed. So obviously the first one shows the tree plantings that are done just by Parks and Recreation. We have not been able to figure out how to really track how many trees are being planted throughout the city. So really what we're tracking is just what Parks and Recreation's doing, and that gets tied to the dollars that are being spent on that. But the second one was important, and that was something that, you know, what you see is that we're really looking at, it's not just how many trees you plant, it's really important to know how many you're taking down. And you can actually see on, this was one of the, probably the most important ones that we saw, is that we're really not getting ahead of the game. You know, if you look over that 4-year period, we really are not planting as many trees as we're taking down. So we're not doing a lot to increase the tree canopy unless we really increase the number of trees that are being planted. So that's what we're tracking. You can do next. Anybody have any questions, ask it while we're going along. And then the other, the next two, we felt were like, this was important also. And this might be something that we want to look at, or the Tree Commission wants to look at, as far as replacing trees, because you can see that of the number of trees that are planted in a year, like in FY20, only 13% were replacements, which is fine. You're still planting 151 trees, but it might be a way to go back and look at where those trees were taken down, and do they need to be replaced? As Peggy said, there may have been some trees that were taken down that are on some major roads, some major streets, some major areas in the city that we might want to look and say, well, why weren't some of these trees replaced in the positions that where they were? And then the next one is really about location. Also, the committee, when we designed these, felt that it was important that we try to get as many trees planted in the right-of-ways, that it was important to be providing shade to streets and sidewalks. So the emphasis was on right-of-way, not on necessarily at the parks, schools. I mean, they're important, but the important emphasis was how many can we really plant in the right-of-way? And you can see that that's you know, it's a lower percentage than we're actually doing in the parks.
Roxanne, this is the one we need to change, because now we need to measure according to our priorities, our guidelines. So we'll have to figure this one out. And we just looked at our, you know, low canopy neighborhoods, right away, shade trees. We may have to kind of tweak this one a little bit.
Yeah, tweak the criteria, but I think it's the same philosophy.
Yeah.
Of trying to have them to be able to provide shade and not to emphasize necessarily the parks. But yeah. Okay. And then the next one is by canopy size. That was also an important one, to make sure that we're really trying to plant large canopy trees, because they certainly have a greater impact on the total canopy of the city. And with replacing trees also, to not be replacing large trees with smaller trees. So you can see that that's the majority, has been larger trees, but we keep track of that. And then the next one is the biggest attempt, really, to try to look at who's planting trees also. And the big components, Public Works, VDOT, and then the other really is tree stewards, other volunteer organizations. You can see in FY16, I think that was the Warner Parkway, and I think that was VDOT. You can see 96% of all the trees that were planted in Charlottesville were planted by VDOT that year. I don't know where they've been the last 3 years, but I guess they haven't been doing very much, or we haven't been tracking it. I don't know. So that's, and then you can see on the FY18, I think that might have been the tree stewards and organizations that planted out by the Monticello Parkway. Anyway, so that's keeping track of that.
You ready?
Yep. And this is really not a performance criteria. This is just the one that shows you the canopy by different neighborhoods. And you can see in the middle, you can see the red and the orange ones are the ones with the low canopy, and those are the neighborhoods that we'd be targeting, because they would be, if you saw a map that it would correlate with the heat islands or the low canopy trees. And that's it. The only one, the other one that we have that you're not seeing, I think because it's still being worked on, and that's sort of tracking the resources that are allocated towards trees. And that's the ways to track what's being spent over the years and try to track that to the number of trees that get planted.
Any questions on that?
That's it. And I think the other thing that we've talked about, and this is something that I think the committee will continue to work on, is are there other data? Is there other data that needs to be collected? Are there other performance targets that we need to develop? I think one of them we've talked about, which has not been developed yet, but I think, Peggy, the one that you suggested, which is looking at the preservation and how we measure how we're preserving our older trees. That was one that was talked about, but has not really been developed or measured yet, I think.
Yeah. The city a number of years ago, when we were doing the CIP, actually gave $50,000 extra a year for into the operating budget for maintenance of our best and mature trees. And so that's something we looked at. Maybe we should be sort of tracking how we're doing on that. Is there any questions on this? Have we bowled you over with all this information?
It's really well presented. It's very informative.
Thank you.
I really like, if looking forward, I like the idea of having some dollars and cents in terms of investment that we could, it seems to me that would be a nice complement to what you have here. Dollars that have been spent by various agencies or dedicated. It's great to hear what you just said, Peggy, for instance, about the tree maintenance. So maybe we could also see where we're lacking in funds, or should redirect funds. But this is super helpful information.
Good.
Well, we think that people respond, and this is something that, we hope to have that people can look at, on the websites, and also that council can look at it, because I think visually, particularly when you see something like the very simple chart about the tree canopy, you can just see that you're losing tree canopy. It's very easy visually to just see that without much explanation. So, yeah.
Jean?
Yeah, to go back to the idea of adding data about tree preservation. As I go around town, I see a lot of trees being lost when new buildings are put up. So part of that data, I would like to know, why are we losing? What are the reasons we're losing trees? Is it construction problem that we keep building closer to sidewalks and can't put in trees? Is it sickness, or just what categories would explain what percentage of trees we're losing?
That's a good idea. Not sure how we can collect that data. We know we're going to be losing ash trees. So that's something.
When trees are taken down, is like when they took them down for this Apex building, nothing has to be recorded about who took it down and why it was taken down, why they were taken down. I just don't know how it works.
Yeah. Well, NDS, of course, neighborhood development services, all those site plans go through them. But that's a good idea if we could figure out some way, start documenting, why, that's that's a good idea. I'm not sure how we'll do it.
Yeah. But I think it's worthwhile so we can see what the patterns are and maybe put a stop to some of it or find ways to slow it down, the loss of trees.
Mark,
There's been discussion about trying to, that's when it's that area, particularly about development and how development is taking down trees and trying to track that back to specific site plans to see what trees did actually come down for this site and which trees actually were taken down and how many did they replace. It's just hard. It's hard to get that data out of those site plans because I don't think they're digitized in the way that it's easy to draw data out of. So it'd be a lot of work. We've thought it'd be a lot of work. Now there may be somebody who comes up with an easy way to monitor and track that data, but
I see Mark has his hand up. Mark's on the codes committee and they're working on the zoning ordinance. Mark, do you have any thoughts on that or thinking about something else?
Well, I put my hand up actually when I had a question about where the data came from for the neighborhoods. I just would like to be able to have access to some of the raw data about neighborhoods, lot sizes, and so on. If I went into the GIS, I could choose a lot and I could see how large it is, but I don't really know how I could sort of filter by neighborhood. And I was wondering if something like that exists. Statistics of say, and I know the data is in the city that we have in our utility bills. The impervious surface is actually a lot by lot data point. But is this something that's available to the public?
This information, I think, came from the Science Museum in Richmond, didn't it, Mike? Do you remember?
I think this comes from the canopy study. At least all the data on the neighborhoods. The most recent canopy study for our neighborhoods.
I don't think this chart did. Paul gave us this chart last, the one we're looking at. Can you see it? The last chart. Do you remember where this came from, Mike? I think Paul gave it to us, and I think he got it from Science Museum in Richmond that's doing a lot of this work.
Yeah, we'd have to check with Paul. I think the graphic came from there, but the canopy numbers, they should be from our most recent canopy study. So, Mark, to answer your question, I'm not sure you're looking for like sort of average lot sizes.
Yeah.
Okay, I can ask our folks at NDS and see, what form that data is in and what we have.
I would like to correlate it. It's just a sort of a personal interest that might be of value to the tree commission. Thanks.
Okay.
It's getting after 6. I missed one thing on the agenda. Let's just talk about it quickly. For the trees, new planting of the city trees this fall, I did raise the question, what about the ash trees that have to come down? Should that be a criteria? I know, for instance, across from the Albemarle County office building, that sort of, it's not a roundabout, but there's a big planting of ash looking terrible right now. They're all, I'm not sure when Mike's gonna take them down, but it's probably soon. But should Should that be a criteria? I mean, some ash trees are gonna come down and it's not gonna make any difference. Along the street going to, along Melbourne, going to CHS, another whole row of ash trees along the street, along the sidewalk, that are dying. But Mike, what are your thoughts on that? Are you still with us?
Yeah, so I'm not sure you think that we should give priority to ash trees where they were removed for tree planting? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if that's, when are you going to take those trees down, for instance, on in front of the Albemarle County Office Building?
I'm not sure yet. I mean, I have to take some pictures, and it's going to be very public. So I've kind of been reluctant to remove those trees, and it's really going to change the block. So I mean, I think from a public perception thing, just having pictures and document that, this is why we're removing them. I definitely want to get ahead of that. So I'm not sure. I don't have a timeline on that when those trees are going to be removed. I mean, as far as priority, I don't know why we would give ash trees a priority over another tree or planting location.
Yeah, I just wanted to raise the question, and I'm particularly thinking of, if you were obviously planning to take them down soon, it would be probably a priority area, because maybe public's going to be concerned, but we could assure them that new trees are coming, or being planted. And obviously the trees look terrible right now. But so I didn't want, if that was an important place, I just thought, should it be given a higher priority?
I think that their location, because it would be suitable for several large shade trees, it would fit our scoring rubric, and they've ranked pretty highly.
Yeah.
So I think it would take priority anyway.
It might.
Without having to look at it.
Except they're not along, yes, they're in the right of way, but they're not along sidewalks or trails. So
They're along sidewalks. There's sidewalks on every side of that.
there are. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I just wanted to bring it up because we obviously are going to. Those trees are terrible. The one on Melbourne, or you've seen those too, I guess, haven't you, Mike?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're looking terrible. They're all going to, we're going to be taking down large groups of ash trees.
Right.
And they're going to make an impact.
Mm-hmm.
And people are going to really notice it, because all of a sudden all these trees are going to be gone. So.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything else? Please let me know if you have any more questions, or you particularly would like to help us with any of these projects that we've talked about. And you can send it to me and I'll pass it along. Jeff doesn't like emails, so you can send it to me if you have any more thoughts or ways that you'd like to help on any of these 3 projects. Just send them along, because we're going to be on this September, which I think it's the 12th or the 13th. We need to approve the tree planting locations, and also we'll be presenting the new data. So those are high priorities. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to Brian.
Thanks.
For hosting us. Thanks to Mike for extending his day. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you all.